Welcome back. This is Ron again, Radiologic Technologist.com. This video is about the question, how long do you go to school to be a rad tech? And this is going to be a pretty cut and dry. The last video I did about the ARRT board exam ended up going an hour, and I apologize for that. I didn't even realize I felt like I'd been talking a long time, but I didn't realize it was an hour. But like I said in that video, that's the cornerstone of the whole thing. That's the crux of what we do. This is a pretty simple, cut and dry topic, but it's a very, very common question. How long do you go to school to be a rad tech? So I will post a link to the article that I wrote about it that explains everything. But there's a lot of visual learners out there and people that also want this information while they're riding around their cars or walking on the treadmill or whatever. So super simple. X-ray school is 2 years for the most part. You're going to find little carve outs here and there that change things a little bit, but for the most part, an X-ray tech goes to school for 2 years. And that 2 years is split up into two parts. It's classroom, also called didactic or lecture, and clinical rotations, where you're actually spending time in the hospitals, doctor's offices, wherever you're at, getting hands-on learning experience. And you have to do both in order to be able to sit for the board exam that I just talked about for an hour. Now, to make sure that I cover everything, I'm going to go over the article that I wrote, but I'm going to break out and add more comment to it. So you should know that the traditional X-ray job, the X-ray tech, the rad tech, the radiographer, is a 2-year program that X-rays everything and does a lot of things I've already talked about in previous videos. But somewhere along the line, somebody cheated. Somebody's trying to cut the system. Somebody's trying to take a shortcut. And somebody came up, I think it was California, somebody came up with this idea of, can we please get somebody in our office that does x-rays, but maybe doesn't do everything, but does enough to get by, that doesn't have to go to a 2-year program. And the need either stemmed from, we don't want to pay as much for a rad tech as we would a mid-level, or we don't do as much in our office as they do in the hospital, so we don't need somebody, or and probably a combination of both. We don't want to pay the full price for rad tech, but we still need chest x-rays done. So can we get a limited x-ray tech in licensure? And they approached the ARRT and they said yes. And so there are some states, I mean, technically you can take the limited x-ray schooling from wherever you're at, but you may not be able to get a job with it wherever you're at. So you need to pay attention. And anybody in this field will tell you, why waste your time doing that? You might as well just go for the whole thing and be able to do everything. So let me explain the differences here. There's a limited practice technologist, which is called different things in different places. There's an LXRT, limited X-ray tech. There's an LPT, licensed practical tech, blah, blah, blah. Current titles include limited X-ray machine operator. So the short answer is it takes 24 months to become a licensed, I should say, certified ARRT radiographer, with or without an associate's degree. And there's a little bit of difference there. Some schools, when you graduate, you end up with an associate's degree. Other schools, when you graduate, you just have the certificate that you graduated, and you're still able to sit for the board exam. Doesn't really matter if you have an associate's or not, unless you want to pursue a higher degree, which is a whole nother topic. So the ARRT, which you know all about now because you watched that video, and the ASRT, American Society of Radiologic Technologists, which we haven't really discussed yet, those two got together and said, we're going to allow a limited practice radiographer. This career option does not require as much school as the traditional fully certified radiographer, but they're still called a radiographer, which is kind of tricky. So the LPT, let's see, PRTs or practical X-ray techs are radiographers entitled, but they're not allowed to image every part of the body according to the scope of practice. And again, I defer you to the ARRT website, where the real data is kept, the real information, not what somebody's opinion is on a YouTube video or in a Facebook group or whatever. And back in the day, we had them where I worked, and I was told back then they could only X-ray extremities, so arms and legs, and that was it. They couldn't do chest, they couldn't do skulls, they couldn't do abdomens. Um, but things are changing. So let's see. The ASRT acknowledges the LXMO, or the limited X-ray machine operator, by quote, the ASRT defines a limited X-ray machine operator as an individual other than a radiologic technologist who performs diagnostic X-ray procedures on selected anatomical sites, end quote. So there's a separation, and you're going to get paid less, obviously. Nowhere in their essential education curriculum does it stipulate how many months or years a program must be to qualify as a training institute. And that's a link. If you check out the show notes, I link to the essential education curriculum that the ASRT puts out on these limited practice texts. It doesn't say how long the program has to be. So what that means is you're going to get schools popping up that try to make it as short as possible, because that's what everybody wants. If you're a part of our Facebook group or you watch the YouTube comments, people are always going, how can I get in and out as quick as possible? Can I do it all online so I don't want to have to drive to school? And it's, it's kind of absurd, is why I'm being sarcastic, because how are you going to get patient experience, patient contact experience going all online with everything? You clearly have to have hands-on a patient to learn this stuff. That's like, how can I become a doctor without ever going to a hospital? I mean, so it has recommendations on how many hours each module should have for education competencies, but there are only recommendations. Again, we're talking about the limited tech here. The ARRT states that both types of radiographers have the same knowledge. Quote, it is the philosophy of the ARRT that an individual licensed is competent, end quote. But they're not. I mean, that's gobbledygook, the psychobabble that they put out, right? I'm sorry, guys, but you can't say that, it's our hopes that they're the same, but you clearly already called them out as being different. And the training is different. So let's jump ahead. How long does it take to learn radiography? So standard X-ray text, 24 months period, end of story. There's hundreds of websites on the internet proclaiming less time that are using clickbait to get you to their website, which is part of why I started my whole channel and my blog to begin with. There are so many websites that don't know anything about what we do that put these clickbaity articles up just so you'll go there and spend time reading their article. But really what they're doing is they've got ads on the sidebars that they get paid for how many times those ads are shown. And you can tell a lot of these BS websites because they call us technicians through the whole thing. They don't even know what we're called. So there's only one licensing body for X-ray techs in America, and that's the ARRT. And we just talked about that in the last video. So if you see an ad for an X-ray school and it's not, it doesn't prepare you for the ARRT licensure, or it's not a JCERT accredited program, then you need to, I get JCERT and JCO. Yeah, JCO's for hospitals, JCERT's for schools. You need to run. They have to be, and you can go, there's a link, you can go to the ARRT website and see what schools are qualified to be sending people to the board exams. So it's the ARRT that sets the rules for becoming a Rad Tech. There are 3 criteria that must be satisfied to be a licensed, certified radiographer. And we've already discussed this, right? If you've been watching the videos, but it's educational, ethical, and the board exam. You have to meet all 3. The educational is you have to go to an accredited school and pass. You have to pass the ethical portion of being a Rad Tech, and then you have to take the board exam. The educational requirement includes earning an associate's degree or higher and completing an accredited radiography program. I'm not sure about that, because I want to say there are some Rad Tech programs now that don't end in an associate's degree. And the profession and all the professions out there are trying to make it to where they're trying to raise the bar. So when you graduate, like there was talk years ago about making all radiography programs graduate you with a bachelor's. They want you to come out with a bachelor's and be more educated when you hit the field. We're not there yet. They're not requiring that, but they've been talking about it. So I think most of them graduate you with an associate's, but I don't know that they all do. So watch for that. And there's always the question on the Facebook groups and on YouTube, well, what's the difference between a Rad Tech program that graduates you with a bachelor's, because some do, and what's the difference between the ones that graduate you with an associate's? You took more classes. You're one step with the bachelor's, you're one step ahead to getting further if you want with a master's or going on. Management often requires bachelor's or higher. So if you ever want to be a radiology director or manager or something like that, you're going to probably have to have a bachelor's. Otherwise, you do not get paid any different as a tech if you have an associate's or a bachelor's. There's nowhere in the pay scale where they give you additional money for having a higher degree. More modality certificates, yes. If you're certified in CT and X-ray, you'll get paid more than somebody just in X-ray. But associate versus bachelor's does not matter. And I've got YouTube videos and blog posts to talk all about that. So there are, at the time that I wrote this article, there are 736 radiography programs throughout the United States. And that's a clickable link. So if you want to go see where they're at, you can do that. You can search it by zip code. People always say, how do I find the best one near me? Google it. Or go to this article, click on the link. It'll take you to the state. They're in every single state. And I've got other articles about how to research the school. But if you're reading this because you were searching the internet to find more information on the career of radiography, please use due diligence and look at the source of your information. I won't beat that dead horse. Is it a website that makes money from referring people to sign up at a school? Blah, blah, blah. So, and then I actually gave some examples back when I wrote this. GetEducated.com is a 21-year-old website that gets roughly 6,000 page views each day. When I did a search for the same question I used in the title of this post, how long do you go to school to become a radiologic tech? They were the first search engine result that Google produced. And here's what it says. You can become an X-ray tech, short for X-ray technologist, by following a specific course designed to allow you to take X-rays. Generally, the subject material is simpler and shorter than radiologic technologist education. It takes on average 14 months to complete an X-ray technologist course versus 2 years to obtain a radiology technologist associate's degree. So it's complete garbage. They don't even know what they're talking about. Radiographers and X-ray techs are the same thing. Unless they were to put the word limited in there, which is not what they were talking about. So anyway, stick with trusted sites that you know that knows what they're talking about. So I went to a school called Pima Medical Institute, which is in several states actually, and did my X-ray there, and it's a private school. And so what you need to know is there are private programs and public programs. And again, I have an article about that, but the public schools are always cheaper, much, much cheaper. But because of that, there's a waiting list to get in. It may take you 2 or 3 years to get in, where a private school is going to cost you a lot more money. But oftentimes you can get right in. If you pass all the entrance exams and everything, you can get right in. So you have to weigh the pros and cons of, because because you may stop there and think, well, I don't want to pay more. I'll pay less. We're going to wait 3 years. If you pay more, but you graduate 3 years sooner, all that extra money you're making is more than you would have had you waited it out here. So you can actually make more if you get through faster. But go read that article if you're interested in that. So I don't think I need to go much deeper down this rabbit hole as far as how long you go to school to be a rad tech. It's 2 years. You have to have classroom study. Now, that classroom study can be in a classroom physically or online. So that's probably one of the bigger changes that's happening now is a lot of our schools are going online, especially over COVID, and you can do your classroom work online, but you still have to go to the physical location to do your clinical rotations. There's no way you can learn how to shoot an X-ray in your house. So there it is, 2 years, partially clinical, partially didactic. You graduate, but you still can't go practice unless you sit for the board exam, which I talked about in the last video, and you pass that. Okay, so that's how long you go to school to be a rad tech. See you in the next video.